Aloha, namaste. This is Radha, and I'm here to talk about our new moon in Dhanistha. This is happening on Friday, the 9th of February at 12:59 p.m. here in Hawaii, which is 2:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And Dhanistha is a nakshatra that bridges Capricorn and Aquarius. It's at the end of Aquarius and moves into Capricorn. Excuse me, it's the end of Capricorn and moves into Aquarius. And it's symbolized by a drum, by the Madrenga, by Shiva's drum that he is meting out the epics of time with. There's this quality of taking that which is of the cosmos. It's ruled by the 8 Vasus. So it's ruled by the sun, the moon, the stars, the elements, fire, air, earth, water, space, and taking that and bringing it to the concrete. These are the first elements of reality, of material being that comes after sound, right? The primordial sound of Om happens, and the galaxies and planets and stars and elements come into being. And from these emanations of light, we're able to construct our little reality here on Earth. Now, the fact that it's at the end of Capricorn and moves into Aquarius has always been very compelling for me, because there's this part of us, or at least of my brain, that thinks of, we imagine something and then we bring it into being through the earth element. And here we see the hard work of the earth element coming first, the place that we're still in, where the stars still are. And I'll flip to the chart in a moment. And yet where we go is then into the intellectual realm of Aquarius. And it's not just any intellectual realm, it's the realm of the future, of what does not exist yet. So by working with the raw materials, we're actually creating something out of nothing that has not yet been. And there's an imagination that's required. There's an element of our brain and our intellect that's needed in order to see what can be. And just like maybe a scientist or an architect or an artist or anybody really who's creating something kind of gets the raw materials and works with it, and then they see what can be, they don't just figure it all out first. There's that quality of working with what we actually have, what's actually here. And this brings in that really practical element of not just Capricorn, but even Aquarius, because Saturn itself is practical. There's a practical awareness of our limitations, what is truly possible. We can imagine, that we're in this crazy future where everything's perfect and all people are living as one, and we're all sitting around a campfire, kumbaya, and nobody has to do anything they don't enjoy doing, and there's no conflict. And we can picture this, but we can also see that from where we're standing right now, that's not where we're at. And we see, groups of people that attempt to create that, and the issues of the outside world constantly come in because they're not part of the outside world, right? If it's out there, it's in here. So we can avoid and negate and kind of pretend that the things that we don't like don't exist. But so long as they're in the field, the general collective field, we are going to be affected by them. And so there's this real practical need to create things that are within our reach. And it's really something that the 11th house teaches us at all, and Aquarius is the natural 11th house, is that we have a big dream and we have to learn to fall in love with the steps along the way, instead of just being disappointed that it's the euphoria and the perfect vision isn't just immediately being erected. We have to kind of accept and honor that each step is its own little victory. And a celebration could even be had for each little step we've taken, because we have a tendency to be too obsessed with the ends and not enough in love with the means of how we get there, which is, the path is that. It reminds me of when I was first really turning or tuning into the deeper spiritual reality of yoga and the teachings of India when I actually went to India and moved it out of, a yoga class in California and walked into the mother country. And really my way of meeting the world and learning things about the world tends to be to just do it. Like, I have my ruling planet in Capricorn, and I tend to just, take off my shoes and walk around the mountain and see what the experience is. And that process for me of dropping into prayer and visiting sacred sites, and yes, taking off my shoes or walking incredibly long distances to get somewhere and to arrive at a place that might even, like in southern India, would sometimes just be a stone, not even formed in the shape of anything particular, a statue people have been worshiping for thousands of years that has no actual form. It's been infused with the energy of Shiva, or it's been infused with the energy of another deity. And people walk very far distances, again, often with no shoes, up a craggy mountain peak at the early dawn to get to this stone that from a outside perspective is just a stone, but it's an ancient stone that's had so many prayers put into it. And along the way, I realized that the practice of praying is in the doing. It's in the bowing down. It's in the walking. It's in the long pilgrimage. It's in the taking the shoes off. It's in all the things that we do. It's not getting there and seeing some magnificent statue and just getting some kind of crazy download from the amazing statue, right? We don't just like do everything we can to power through and get there. We have to absorb and enjoy each part of it, because that's part of how we get there, right? If we just zoom ahead, then we don't get there. And we see that a lot in traveling, and nowadays people travel to anywhere they want to go and they can just zoom to the next place and zoom to the next place. And, there's these tours of 20 countries in 20 days and everyone jumps out and takes a couple pictures and jumps back in, but they never actually experience the culture, right? They're just getting some souvenirs and some snapshots, and they're not actually experiencing what the place is and feeling the vibration of it. Well, it's the same with this concept I'm talking about. And if we put this into the things we're building in our lives, if we're fixated on some end, like having a business that's successful, or creating a nonprofit organization, that builds structures for people who need a place to live, or whatever our vision is, removing the plastic from the ocean, we get fixed on just that one result, then it's kind of like the means don't matter, right? And we might do things that are unethical in order to get to our ends, or we might shove people to the side and not care about our human connections because the ends are so important. And we don't realize that in so doing that, we actually shift what the end could ever be. We actually kill paradise on our way to paradise by knocking somebody's issue to the side, or by ignoring a conflict that needs to be resolved, or by, just getting to the finish line. So I hope that makes sense. It makes sense to me. I'm going to share my screen so we can just see where these alignments are. And just really note how many planets are in Capricorn. We have the moon and the sun here in Dhanistha, and it's this steady rhythm, this steady sound that carries us into the plane of what the future can hold. But the Mercury is in Shravana, where we are listening carefully beneath the surface, hearing more than what is on the surface of things. And this is really important, because what we hear and what we are able to then emanate in sound is the foundation of what we create. And it's also really important because oftentimes when we're dealing with Capricorn, we are very results oriented. The result is survival. Things are very much about this ends. And when we have Mars here, who's in the earlier degrees in Uttara Shada, and I just did a video on Mars and Capricorns, if you want a little deeper download, and I really go into his connection with these other planets here, particularly Mercury, and Venus moves in on the 11th. So you can check that out if you want more on this. But essentially, Mars being here really adds to the idea that we're getting somewhere, right? Mars is our source of action. So We're going there, and it's exalted here because all that fire has somewhere to channel and a plan, somewhere to go. And it tempers the fiery outbursts, and it tempers the part of us that can get erratic with our anger or with our courage, as opposed to having our courage committed to something that has an important goal. But in Capricorn in general, we can get very attached to that goal and become not just minimalist, but even really sort of use anyone and anything in our way in order to get there. And Mercury's presence, and soon to be Venus's as well, can help add an amicability and a desire to communicate what it is that we're doing, so that others can help us. Because if there's anything that we're hopefully learning in this time that we've been navigating collectively, is that we really kind of can't do it alone. You know, we can do our one project alone, we can have our one little career alone, but even that requires other people to want the thing that we're offering, or to, you know, in some way, other components of what we're doing have been made by others. And just like we want to honor our little steps on the way to our big dream, we want to honor all the people. I almost said little people, but that's really not the right word. That's the antithesis of what I'm trying to say. We want to honor all the big people, all the big contributions that every single other person has made to get us to where we are, right? We are not standing alone on an island just because we were so blessed to you know, be born in this emanation that has all these gifts and talents, or, you know, has all these resources at our disposal. Each thing, each step was built upon something, even our previous selves. And so we need to honor all the parts of ourself that got us here, and all the contributions of everyone else that got us where we are, and recognize that each thing that was a difficulty, or each struggle we've had, has been fortifying us more to face the next thing. It didn't just set us back on some goal. It is a part of it. It's woven into the tapestry of whatever it is we are manifesting and working towards. And so this moment, we have a lot at our disposal. We have a lot to work with. We have the power of the moon, the sun, the stars, the earth, the air, the fire, the water, and the space. We have all of these elements in our hands, ready to help us. And we have all the other people around us. And we might feel like they're hurting our goals in some ways, but they can't be, because our goal can't be something other than what is, right? We can't just pretend that all of this doesn't exist just because we don't like it. Dealing with what we don't like is part of the path forward. And so that's my, I think that's my download for this new moon. There's a lot more on this stellium in Capricorn. And like I said, you can check that out at Mars in Capricorn. It's another video on YouTube, and not too long. And also my weekly forecast that I did for this week's transits has the new moon that we're setting off a new cycle. And also, you know, the sun is ending his tenure here in Capricorn at the same time as a new cycle is beginning. But it's in a different house for each of us. Right? Capricorn rules something different for each of us. So it's going to be very different what area of your life is getting really activated by all these planets. And I have that broken down for all 12 signs in my forecast for all 12 signs, aptly named. And also what Mars' transit into Capricorn is for all 12 signs. And next week I will include Venus. I didn't want to overwhelm us, but I will include what Venus is, because for some of us, these are our ruling planets, or they rule our relationships, or they rule your career, or they rule your home. You know, it's really different what is shifting, where it's shifting to, and how it's changing your lived reality. And that's why I do those. So you can check those out at patreon.com, Radha Home Astrology. And if you'd like to book a reading, you can just go to radhahomeastrology.com. And I'll see you soon. Happy new moon. Namaste.